Hi everyone, I want to go ahead and introduce our final writing project for the semester. It is research paper debunking a conspiracy theory. So just kind of give you a real brief overview. What we're going to be doing with this paper is we're going to be talking about a conspiracy theory. It can be any conspiracy theory that you want to write about, to research. You're going to get 5 sources about that conspiracy theory that you're going to use to create a researched argument. And the researched argument should be arguing that that conspiracy theory is very likely not true. I would really recommend choosing to write about a conspiracy theory that you do not, kind of secretly believe is true, because it can really come through in the research process and also just in the language that you're using. So I just really recommend to write about something that you are interested in. Maybe you don't already have an opinion about, could be a good one. And that you feel confident you can talk about in a way where you have some distance from the subject, okay? It's going to be 5 pages long plus a works cited page. And so try to aim for 6 pages. A lot of people do go over, and that's okay. But you want to have at least 5 pages. And I'm going to share a couple of sample essays with you, both in MLA and APA, depending on whatever version you want to use for the project. These essays that I've written are not finished because I wrote them in the semester and I just didn't really have time to finish writing. But hopefully looking at them will give you a little bit of a sense of how you could structure the essay, the types of sources that you can use for it, and we'll just give you a little bit more of a sense of like what you should do. I might do my best to try and finish one of them so that you can, or finish it so that you can see it. So some important due dates for this project. We have a peer review. Our first peer review for this project is going to be April 23rd. So that's in a while. And what we're going to do for that peer review is we're going to be looking at your summaries and we're going to be looking at the context that you've given. So this is going to be like all of your background information type of stuff, okay? Then our second peer review, we're going to get into the debunking. So that's going to be where you're trying to prove that the conspiracy theory is not true. If you want to get my feedback on this paper before you turn it in for a final grade, you can turn it in on April 30th, and it has to be in by that day. So that I will have a little bit of time to review it and get it back to you. I will accept drafts through May 4th. Okay, and so that is the absolute last day I can accept drafts of this paper. Just because it is going to take a while to grade it, and I really have to get grades done before final grades are due. All right. So I have a lot of, information on here about the assignment itself, but I want to kind of skip forward a little bit. So like I said, you're going to have 5 sources. 2 of those sources need to be primary sources, which means, like a primary source is when you do like an interview with someone, you're talking directly to the source. So that directness is the primary part of a primary source. Primary sources can include interviews. This could be like government documents. It could be something that you found on social media that's directly from somebody who believes in a conspiracy theory. What I'm talking about here is going to be something that is directly from a person who is representing an expert, who is an expert in, science, for example, if you're talking about a scientific conspiracy theory, or is someone who genuinely believes in a conspiracy theory. Secondary sources are when that person is interviewed and then somebody writes an article about it. Okay, so if you interview someone, that's a primary source. If you read an interview of somebody or watch an interview of somebody else interviewing them, that's a secondary source. So 2 of your sources need to be primary sources. And the most common types of sources we'll definitely talk about, but they'll usually be things like, an article written from somebody working at NASA about flat Earth theory. So that was directly from a NASA employee, right? Or government documents, for example. Those are some of the most common ones, or like a scientific article that's published in like a journal. Or if we're looking at the conspiracy side of things, it could be, it can be something on social media, like a Reddit post, for example. It could be some news sources or like, like podcasts and things like that. They might have a conspiracy theory in them. And so that would be primary source. And so, like that person is trying to convince you to believe in a conspiracy theory. So when I'm talking about primary sources, that's what I mean. And so just let me know if you have any questions about that. We are going to be turning in our planned sources, and so I'll give you some feedback. The structure of the paper, you're going to want to start with the official theory. So this is going to be, what do historians, government officials, scientists, whoever, what did they say happened? Okay. Or what did they say, is the process, or what do they say is the reality that you're going to be talking about? So, for example, scientists say that the Earth is round, and so then what you will move on then from to talk about is the conspiracy theory. Okay, and so then you will say, okay, well, conspiracy theorists, they say that the Earth is actually flat, and so when you're giving those backgrounds, you want to try to remain as neutral as possible because what we're trying to do here is be fair. And so that's part of the reason why we have primary sources here, so that we're really genuinely listening to both sides. Okay, another thing that you can and probably should do in the paper is try to talk about why people don't trust the official theory. And a lot of times this is going to be related to a context. So again, we're going back to context. We're going back to this rhetorical situation. What has happened that is making people distrust or suspicious? It could be things like there's a history of lying. Okay, it could be something like there's just growing distrust of science and the government, but you're trying to be as specific as possible, so you want to kind of tie it to the culture, to movements and thought and things like that. Again, we're going to be really breaking this down step by step because I know it can be a little overwhelming right now. And then after you kind of gone over all of that, you'll go over each of the sides, like here's what the official theory says, here's what the conspiracy theory says, here's why people distrust the official theory. Then we're going to get into debunking. So this is where you'll say, okay, there's clearly reasons why people don't trust the conspiracy or don't trust the official theory, and there's clearly reasons that they like evidence that they've provided. However, here is why this conspiracy theory is probably not true. And then you're going to use evidence to prove that it's probably not true. And so that can include things like facts. It can include things like discussion of cognitive bias that makes people believe in certain conspiracy theories, logical fallacies, all kinds of different types of evidence that we'll be putting together to build the best case possible to hopefully convince people that the conspiracy theory is unlikely. Now, our goal for this week is mostly to decide what conspiracy theory you want to do. I have some examples here. There's different types of conspiracy theories, everything from like celebrity shipping conspiracy theories, these two celebrities are secretly dating, to super political conspiracy theories, to UFO conspiracy theories, to sports conspiracy theories, science, history, all kinds of stuff, okay? And even fictional conspiracy theories, like things that are in a TV show, for example. But talk to me if you have one of those, because we can make sure it checks out. I also have some sources down here if you want to look ahead and kind of think about how you might approach this topic, or if you want to get a little bit more background information. A lot of these too can be helpful for when you're working on building your evidence. Okay, your debunking. It's going to be worth 20 points. And then down here, I have a pretty detailed rubric. Please let me know if you have any questions about the rubric. One thing I forgot to mention is that you should have 5 sources, and for each of those sources, you need to have one quote or a very specific paraphrase from that source. Okay, so you don't want to be talking generally when you're using source material. You need to be taking specific evidence from the source and using that to prove your point. Okay, so no kind of generalizations are going to work very well in this case. We want to make sure that we're making a really compelling argument. Okay, so I think that's everything. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're going to write about.